Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Ross Aiken. This is episode 3, and we will be covering Adventure Comics 62 and Starman Volume 2, Issue 1. And that's kind of be the pattern how this goes. I kind of probably said this in the first 2 episodes, but we're going to start with rotate between Ted and Jack and the other Starman. So this is our second visit to Ted and our second visit to Jack. So let's get started with the pertinent data to Adventure Comics 62 from Mike's Amazing World. I like this site a little bit better. It's easier for me to read, and it gives me the actual publication date, which I like. It's a little better for this series than my normal source of the DC fandom. So this is, as I said, Adventure Comics 62. It was cover dated May 1941 with approximate sale date of April 2nd, 1941. Editor Frederick Whitney Ellsworth. This story is called The Menace of the Lethal Light. Features Starman. Writer Gardner Fox. Woohoo! Artist Jack Burnley. Woohoo! It's only been reprinted once, and that was in Archive Volume, Golden Age Starman Archive Volume 1, published in 2000, which I have sitting in my lap. That is how I am reading it. Supporting cast is Doris Lee. This is the first time her first name is given. Woody Allen, her uncle, the head of the FBI. It's the introduction of the villain, The Light, who will appear a few more times. And Ted and Doris are engaged in the story. This story was originally not titled, so that's cool. I didn't realize that. There's a lot to learn because the archive is just his stories from adventure. I wish some of this stuff was on the app and had the whole comic, so I could kind of get a feel of what else was in here with it. I know Sandman is and some others, but I'm only familiar with this stuff because I've read this volume. This will be the third time through this volume. I did it once when I got it, and I read this whole volume about maybe 6 months, a year ago. So I'm really enjoying reading them again. The synopsis from Mike's Amazing World is, Dr. Selby is kidnapped by the Light, a scientist who is expelled by Selby from a science institute. Light gets his revenge by using a diminishing ray, on Selby, reducing him to a few inches in height. Selby alerts Agent Allen with the FBI, who in turn summons Starman. Allen and Starman go after the Light, and both are captured along with Starman's girlfriend, Doris Lee. All three are victims of the diminishing ray, but Starman uses the gravity rod to force the thug to restore him to normal. With his foe restored to the normal height, the Light tries to disintegrate Starman, but instead he himself is destroyed. Okay, so let's pop this little bad boy open. All right, it's got a great cover. I think it's a great cover. Sorry. It's Starman melting a lock with Alan looking on. He's saving Doris. It's got little Sandman up in the thing, so Sandman is in this. These Golden Age covers are great. Jack Burnley's art is amazing. I'm going to start with that. But I'd like to let me read you the little box at the beginning. The first page has a little mini splash at the top. It's Starman by Jack Burnley, even though Gardner Fox is writing it. They used to not give accurate credits in the past. And that had to do with who created them, and just it wasn't the practice yet to credit the creators. But the opening box, or the narrative box in that panel's got a great little beginning. When a sinister mastermind with a warped intelligence takes terrible vengeance on those he hates, he finds his evil power challenged by Starman, a fantastic figure of the night who utilizes the mysterious forces of the stars to combat crime and injustice. And then it there are 4 more panels on that page. One is this shadowy figure going in the window of Dr. Selby, Dean of the Scientific Institute. He's going in through the French doors of his house, and he shoots this hissing gas ray and knocks him unconscious, and he's driven off, and then he wakes up in a strange place, and Dr. Light, who is this evil genius, bald. A lot of DC evil villains are bald. He's got a goatee, and he's wearing the traditional white smock with a kind of Nehru collar, or just the neck collar. I don't know how to describe it. And he shrinks Selby, and you see him shrinking. And these are some great panels. Jack Burnley's art is amazing. if you have a copy of this, I recommend you, if you can find a copy of this archive, I recommend you find it. You give it a you buy it if you can get it at a decent price. It's well worth it. And DC, put the stuff on your app. If you've got enough to an image to print something, come on, you can put it. You can scan it. But it shows him shrunk down. He wakes up back at his house, shrunk down. He climbs up on the table and phones his friend, Chief Allen, Woodley Allen, who then calls Starman, who is driving along with his fiancée, Doris, and he feigns illness and tells her to drive herself home, and then he flies off and meets Allen. And as Allen and Starman are driving, going, I guess they're going to look. Wait a minute. They go looking for him, and Dr. Light has the Light. I'm sorry, not Dr. Light. The Light has a spaceship of some sort, and he kidnaps Allen by lifting his whole car in. And Starman, who has been following, flies up through the hatch with a comment, "What a fantastic kidnapping. Give credit where credit is due." And when he gets in there, he finds that Doris is in there, shrunk. He rescues her. And that's when he realized Allen shrunk, and Light gasses Starman and shrinks him. One of the henchmen tries to grab the shrunk Starman, and Starman stops him by pulling a hair out of his hand. That hurts him and makes him drop Starman. Starman lifts up his gravity rod, or his cosmic rod, and destroys the thing that was holding them in business, the statue, and then he shoots the man up to the ceiling. He forces him to use the shrink ray to unshrink him, and then shrinks Dr. Light. And then Allen and Doris fly off in the spaceship, and Starman flies away. So it's a big, these are short comics. Yeah, it's only 9 pages. They're fun because these are 64-page comics. It's a simple, basic kind of Golden Age comic. It's 1941. They're still pretty basic. I like the Light as a villain. He appears 2 more times in issues 65 and 71, and that's kind of cool that he does. He is the him and the Mister that kind of reoccur, and they don't reoccur that often. Villains of Starman, and this kind of follows the same formula. A crime happens. Woodley Allen is called. Starman is summoned. He feigns a headache or migraine, and to make Ted look weak to Doris, so he can make an excuse to get away and then go beat the bad guy. We're not seeing any of this kind of stuff that we know about Ted, and which won't really come until, I guess, the Silver Age. But I am enjoying kind of talking about these little short stories before we go and talk to Jack's adventures. So. The art is beautiful, as I said. The story is a good, solid Gardner Fox strip. I'm a big, you guys, if you've been following the Stop Let's Team Up, you know how much admiration I have for Gardner Fox as a creator. He's just amazing. He writes these great, solid stories that are, entertaining. 80-some years later. So it's kind of great. So I'm going to take a little quick switcheroo, and we're going to talk Starman 1. This issue is cover dated November 1994. Cover artist is Tony Harris. Writer James Robinson. Penciler Tony Harris. Inker Wayne Von Grawbadger. Colorist Gregory Wright. Letterer John Workman. Editor the amazing Archie Goodwin, Jim Spivey, and Chuck Kim. The title of this issue is Sins of the Father, Part 2 of 4, Oil, Paint, and Water. So let's kind of go over this issue. I'm really enjoying these. I've read ahead, but I really enjoyed this. And I want to start with the opening panel, some of the stuff that's there. It's Shade sitting in his library. It's a 3-panel page, one over top of the other. And the top page is him sitting by candlelight, using a quill pen and writing in his journal. And the narration goes, "The shadowy, shadowy gentleman sighs, a worried sigh for his city, his home. He scratches his ear and sips absinthe, dabs the elegant lace napkin to his lip, and continues to write. his journal observations ink on paper. Opal City has been the same old, for how long? A decade, two perhaps. Truly, it all begins to blur after a while. And then the next panel is a newscaster, and she's talking about the bank robbery, and she's saying, the crimes yesterday widespread and with a startling degree of apparent orchestration, the night of fire, as it's been dubbed already, claiming 43 lives during the many robbery and assaults that have occurred. And with me now to comment on this, and then it shows the people with ragdoll masks shooting some police outside Opal Saving Glen. So this is really cool. So we're getting the update via the news, and this kind of panel layout, it's great. It's so beautiful. It lays out between this is for the next two pages. It's the shade, the newscasters, and then the violence of Kyle and the ragdoll and his goons. I guess it's the ragdoll cult, and we'll talk about that because that's going to become really important later on. But he just keeps going, and then it gets to the title page, which is page 4, and that is, it starts with one, the last thing said by the newscaster. Let me read that too. That's on page 3. And that the woman of reporters asking the chief of police, so in your opinion, this night of fire is the strategy of one man, a mastermind? And the chief goes, yes, that might indeed be the case, of course. Another theory is when the news finally broke, it emboldened Opal City criminals, the Opal City criminal community to arise en masse. And the reporter goes, this news being those that, for you tuning in late, the Starman is dead. And then we see the title card. It's Jack coming into the emergency room after his fight with Kyle, and the title, Oil, Paint, and Water, and he's treated. And then he goes to his father's room after he's had a bullet pulled out of him, and they have a conversation at his father's bedside, and his dad just tells him to get out. You know, he tells Jack, you stayed alive, and your brother, you stayed alive more than your poor brother Davy. You know, his father's just grieving, and he tells that, and Jack leaves, and then he meets the Adair family. There are 4 cops that are tight. The families connect. Their family is connected to Ted, and they hold him in high esteem, and they're there guarding him for their dad, who's I think his dad. We haven't met their dad, but their dad's like the chief of police. And then Jack has a conversation with Heather Adair, the sister, the 4 siblings. And they have a nice long conversation, and he learns more about his dad from total strangers. She gets it. She's trying to console him, but she's really talking about, the connection between their 2 families, them, and Ted, and soon to be Jack. And they just gets to be this, they're talking. But here's what gets me. The thing that really I liked is when Heather goes, sigh. My father was a cop, young in the 40s, brash in the 43. A supervillain was menacing the city. My father got in his way, almost died 'cause of it. Your father, Starman, saved his life. Dad never forgot that. He swore he'd always be around when Starman needed him, and the same goes for me and my brothers. And Jack goes, I'm touched really, though at the same time I have to ask if you're touched, all of you in the head. I mean, all this talk of duty, honor, family is, and she just jabs him in the chest and goes, and I have to ask you if maybe your dad is right about you being a callow, gutless, and then one of her brothers comes out and interrupts him. Jack, I think you best come in here. We just received a phone call suddenly, and it's the Mist. He's calling Ted and taunting him, saying that, I've killed your children, your city will burn. And it's incredible. Ted doesn't really talk. He just listens to this long treat, and it's got this great farewell when Mist goes, good. Farewell then, my sweet foe, until I come for you. And this is where he just tells Jack to go, get out of here. The mist thinks you're dead. Your mother was cremated, her ashes sprinkled. There are no bones to steal, and this is a hoax. I'm thinking or hoping. Jack doesn't know what to do. He's like, because he's threatened, the mist has threatened his mother's legacy. And that's what's freaking Ted and Jack out. And then Jack, sorry, gotta keep, because I got them both in my head. Jack goes to the bus station, then he figures it out. It's the museum wing of the museum named after his mom. And the next thing you know, he is flying. He's got a Jolly Roger Skull and Bones red t-shirt, and he flies into battle. And he starts battling these goons with the ragdoll cult masks on. And the Shade's is in the crowd watching it. And the news reporter reports just coming in. Starman is intervening at the museum, and this is indeed true. The reports of David Knight's death are greatly. He wasn't murdered. Starman, incredible, fabulous. That's the crowd. And Shade in the back goes, "This is a new player, I sense, and I'm guessing I know who. The younger Knight, Jack." And then we've got the next 2 pages is Jack just using his jiu-jitsu or kung fu, whatever he learned, whatever his dad made him learn so he could defend himself. And then Kyle comes flying up with a machine gun wearing the converter belt, and he zaps Jack, or tries to zap Jack. As Jack flies away, he smashes through a window, and then he keeps flying, and then he falls into the river and loses the cosmic rod. And Kyle knows he's not dead. Kyle knows for sure he's not dead because he threatens one of his goons, and he's gonna say, "I'll deal with him," and he flies off. And the next thing is they're in a mausoleum, these goons, and the Shade shows up, and they're trying to rob a grave, and he just lifts his arm, and this creature of shade and darkness comes out from the fold of his coat and eats one of the bad guys, and the others are all just freaked out. And he's just great. I love Shade as a character, and he's an incredibly important part to this story. That this is a villain outside of Opal City, but inside Opal City, it's his home, and he'll defend it. And he's just a great character, and big chunks of the story will be told from his point of view in a lot of ways. He has this great line when he's leaving. "A pity you're dead, Jack. You couldn't see what I found. I wonder, if you had lived, could you have been that which your father and brother never were? The champion this city has deserved and has been deemed those many years indeed? Not since the Native American lawman died. I wonder. Well, never know, I suppose. A shame, too, indeed. Such a shame." And then that page just it starts with 3 solid black panels when it says indeed. And then it slowly morphs into the river water, and the box says, "My father was right. I'm not a hero. This showed it. I don't think like one. I don't. Fool to even try what I did. I lost the gravity rod, yeah, and lucky I didn't lose my head along with it. Dad wanted me to leave town. Fine. Just don't think I'd be doing that by way of water. In the light of day, I'll see what he was right. I can't help Opal. Never could. No sterling soul. It's better to be safe, alive in the light. Light of day, I'll see that it's... Oh, hell. It's a long time until day and light. I'm going back." And he's making that choice. And in the next issue, he's gonna take that next step, and it's gonna be great. But this thing is beautifully drawn. Tim Harris's art is just so stellar. From panel layouts to choice. Him and the colorist work really well together with the palettes. Some really nice uses of brown and greens I like, and patterns. And panel layout. Jack in this kind of I don't know if it's a Hawaiian shirt or a Cuban shirt, but he's looking kind of snazzy. And we get this first look at the O'Dares, the 4 of them, and I'll give you the names in a moment. And then there's just the thing about the city on fire, and that whole conversation on the pages where the mist is taunting Ted. The use of brown and yellow and orange is just beautiful. And the action sequences, Tim Harris can really do the action sequences with Jack flying. And the way he chooses to show how people fly using Ted's technology is amazing. And the Shade's just badass. I mean, just badass. He's so incredible. He's probably my, after Jack, who I love, my second favorite character in this whole series. What I like in this volume, I'm using the hardcover Omni. I got the big compendiums, but this has some more of the text. And luckily, if you have this, it's a text from the letter columns of Starman I, and it's more of James Robinson talking about what he collects. Because what I like is he talks about his collecting in comparison to Jack's collecting, and he talks about the kind of artists that inspired him, and he listed some great, and the modern creators whose work he follows are Miller, Gaiman, Mignola, Aldred, Jeff Smith, and Stan Sakai, which is a good group. And it's just a good, solid comic. It's on the app. Read it. It looks great. If you're following along or if you remember this one, it's just a real solid comic. And I'm hoping, I've got some guests lined up for certain issues. For some of the special issues like Talking with David and Times Past. And I'm hoping to get more guests on for other episodes. But I kind of want to keep on my schedule, and we're going to cover this. Next week, we're going to touch on the Blue Starman. I'm going to do a quick synopsis of, or go over his first appearance and first comic special. And then there's a solo story of his that was in the 80-page giant, and I'm going to talk about that one. So I'm looking forward to that. But this just good, solid issue. This is our third episode. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please, if you have comments, drop it in, DM me on Twitter, or you can send me an email at stopletsteamup@gmail.com. I want to know your input, what you think, what's working, what's not working. I'm doing the solo for big chunks of it. I hope to line up some good guests who can jump in and help carry some of the load, who love this series as much as I do. So Thursday is going to be Legion, and we're going to be covering one of my top 3 Legion stories of all time, featuring the introduction of Miss Prize and Mysterious and Surprise to the Legion of Superheroes. And this Saturday or Sunday, it will be Danger Street 3 and first issue special number 3, which has Metamorpho in it, so that'll be fun. But until then, y'all be safe, you be smart, be kind, and read some comics.